This is the Prestigious Initiative, and these are the points. I'm Chris Kent, and I'm joining Chris Bean. Hello, Mr. Bean.
Hello, sir.
Let's talk about your conversation with Simran Parikh. Any first impressions to start us off?
Yeah, it was very clear how passionate and knowledgeable she was on her topic, and her topic is one of mental health, which is something that is a great concern for everybody, in whatever walk of life they're in right now. And so that was, I think, it was very refreshing to hear her take on that information. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yeah. We had a very good conversation with her, talking about many different things, but starting out at the beginning, kind of her approach to mental health and therapy. When she's meeting with people, she very much emphasizes the fact that each person is different. Each person handles situations differently, deals with different situations, responds to different kind of things. And so when she's going into her conversations during therapy, she always treats each person uniquely and tries to make them feel comfortable, because that's what's going to help foster conversation and help foster healing and progress in the work they're doing, is if someone feels comfortable. And on top of that, she promotes being honest, being transparent. She is what I found refreshing, which unfortunately sometimes seems to be the opposite in society, is that she's not disregarding or making fun of males specifically who seek therapy with her. Again, I think that there are very many standards or norms that men are held to, or things that are pushed on them. Stereotypes even. Yep. And this isn't always the case. And, I sometimes men don't need defending, but in this realm, I think that something that should be allowed to everybody, no matter who they are or what they're doing or what the situation is. And Simran seems to take that approach, no matter who she's working with and meeting with. And so, like you said, really great to hear her passion and her desire to help others in many different ways and all kinds of whoever she might come across.
Yeah, and it was really interesting to hear the way that she goes about this. And what I mean by that is, of course, as somebody goes to therapy, there's a little bit of apprehensiveness. Like, that person doesn't necessarily want to be there, probably. They're a little bit scared, fearful about what's going to happen. They're maybe a little bit mystified because they don't actually know what's going to happen. And it really seems like she does such a good job of diffusing that, allowing the conversation to flow naturally, not trying to pull or force anything, but it just kind of happens. And on top of that, she talked, and maybe you talk about this a little bit later on, because she talked about it a little bit later on, but there's a little bit of a feeling out kind of process. Are you a good patient for me? Am I going to be able to help you in the things that you need help with? But then on the patient side, there's a little bit of are you the right type of therapist that I need? Are you going to be responsive to the type of person that I am? Or so there's a little bit of a balance that's trying to be found there. And I can see how, especially if your paycheck is dependent on it, I can see how you try to, as a therapist, mold yourself into whatever shape that person needs, so that you can have as many clients as you can have. But it doesn't seem like that's the case for Simran, and I think that that's very helpful, because we can't put ourselves in a box that we don't fit in. And so with that, it is helpful that she is able to kind of put her ego aside, sort of say, and allow that process to flow naturally, to have a give and take on both ends, and have that even playing ground as they journey into their therapy.
Absolutely. And like you said, she understands the importance of finding the right therapist for yourself, finding someone that fits with you, that you can manage expectations from. Hey, I'm looking for this. If this therapist can't offer it, I need to go find somebody else. Or, hey, I can tell that you're looking for this one thing, and as a therapist, I can't offer that to you. So I suggest managing those expectations. And it's not so much as how many clients can you fit into your schedule and get as many people as possible, but really finding out what's good for that person, what's really going to help them along their journey. And, on top of that, she talked about if you happen to meet with a therapist and they're not the right fit, you find that out. Don't let that bad experience deter you from doing the work to find the right therapist, because You could go out and try to find a therapist and they're not the right fit and things don't work and it just doesn't feel right. And you or they end that relationship and that meeting. And then you're left kind of on your own. I think it'd be easy to just let that be, hey, therapy's not for me. It didn't work out. It's not something that I'm going to continue to pursue because they had a bad experience. But as Simran encourages, don't let that one bad experience stop you from doing it at all. You need to put the work in to find the right person for you, and then you can start reaping the benefits from a good therapist-patient relationship that is out there. It just might not be with the first person you happen to come across in that realm.
Yeah, and how admirable that is she doesn't want to taint or ruin that experience, that therapist-patient relationship for those people as they move forward. That she doesn't want to say, hey, this is what it is. Sorry, because it's not that way. If you have a bad experience with one person, doesn't mean that's going to be that way with somebody else. Odds are it's not. And having that kind of mindset as you go in makes for a very different experience for the patient. And I think that she has strategically structured that so the patient can have the most benefit from her sessions.
Yes, sir. Kind of talk a little bit about things that she notices in sessions, common things that happen in most situations. She mentioned how oftentimes if she comes across someone or is working with someone who's feeling very judged, feeling discriminated against, feeling a lot of negative emotions from certain people, oftentimes those feelings are coming from people that are close to that person. We feel those feelings of judgment from people that are close to us. And in most cases, it's easier to hide those emotions than it is to ask for help, which is why, it's so important to find that right person to talk with and meet with, because even though it's not the easier thing to do, it's better than hiding those things, ignoring those things, and trying to deal with them when sometimes they need to be fleshed out or taken care of or dealt with. And, that wound needs to be mended rather than the quote unquote easy way of just ignoring it, which often doesn't end up being the easy way because it causes more problems along the way. The several issues can grow over time if they're not addressed. And that's why therapy is so important in for anybody really that's kind of experiencing any sort of difficulty, which I know that we all have.
Yeah, as she was talking about this, and as you're talking about it too, I'm reminded of the phrase or saying that people say that is, most accidents occur within 5 miles of the home. Okay, why does that happen? Well, because you drive to your home more often than you drive somewhere else. It's hard to say that most accidents happen 758 miles away from home, because how often are you 758 miles? But you're more often close to home. So that's where those accidents happen. So with that, those people that we interact with most have the most influence over us. We care about those people most because we interact with them most. They are often within that inner circle. So we're hearing their opinions more than somebody else's. And those people that we care about most, from time to time, let their feelings know about you. And when that happens, that means that you get to know what they feel about you. And that isn't always beneficial, because sometimes they tell you things you don't want to hear. Sometimes they tell you things that you need to hear but don't want to hear. Sometimes they tell you things that they should not tell you, because nobody should tell you, because it's not real, it's not important, it's not whatever it is. So when those people that are closest to us tell us those things, that is the most meaning, because we care about them. We care about their feelings. We care about what they think of us. And when they're cutting us down, that's a really tough situation. And so as you are moving and going through your day, you have to be mindful of that as you go. And Simran talks about that as very, something that happens often. Those people who we care most about and hopefully care most about us, are the people that from time to time cut us down, and those cuts hurt the most. Yeah.
And oftentimes that damage is done, because we don't have maybe necessarily the right perspective. Perspective is important in any relationship, especially when you're in a fight, realizing that you're both probably upset. You both probably have reasons to feel the way you feel. And so having that good perspective in any relationship, especially during fights, like I said, is really key. And so Simran talked about in those moments, making sure that, you know, try to let the other person speak first, as hard as that can be. If you have something to say or something that's bothering you or something that you need to get off your chest or something they said that made you mad that you got to comment on, fight that urge. Let the other person speak first. And when they're speaking, try to exercise your active listening, which is important in therapy. As a therapist, exercising active listening to the person that you are working with. But then also, again, in this relationship or this fight type of scenario, try to exercise that active listening to figure out what's really going on and what's really causing the issues. And, something that she said, which kind of changed my perspective, is that, I held this idea, and it's kind of sort of a common idea, is, resolve your issues before you go to bed. Don't go to bed being angry at each other. Don't go to bed, with this thing looming over you, which seems like a great idea. But, Simran opened my eyes to think that, not everything can be resolved before you go to bed. Sometimes there are bigger issues at play. If their fight happened right before you went to bed, you're not going to get over that in the next 20 minutes before you go to sleep or whatever. And so as much as that idea sounds good, it's not always applicable in every situation. And so allowing the other person space to say what they're feeling and say what they need to say, trying to use your active listening to figure out what's actually going on, and realizing that you're not going to be able to resolve every issue within what you might think is a timely manner or a good time frame. Letting that run its course and allowing them to feel the way they feel can be important. And like I said, even as hard as that is, sometimes that's probably the best course of action in some situations.
I think that the interesting part about that is we hear all these kind of thoughts and opinions and outside quote unquote facts, things we should hold as facts because somebody else said that we should. But case in point right here, this is not necessarily the way that we can go about this. I think the underlying thing there is we shouldn't allow time to pass before we say sorry or apologize for whatever the situation is. But when you hear don't go to bed angry or don't go to bed upset with your partner or whatever it is, then okay, that's the fact. But that's not doable in every case, in every situation. So it's important to take the information that we get, kind of distill it, and understand what is maybe the underlying cause, what is the reason that they say this, and then kind of move forward with that. And then as far as having that argument, that disagreement with somebody, letting them speak first is a wildly helpful tactic, because what that does is that gets them to say their part. If you speak first, whatever they say next is the counter argument to whatever you said. And so if you get their side of it, you know your side, they know their side, you don't know their side. So if you let them speak first, then you get clarity on where they're coming from. You get clarity on what they saw, how they interacted with it, and then you can move forward from there to a place that is mutually acceptable based on that clarity that is derived from allowing them to speak first. And I think that is helpful, especially that coupled with that active listening, right? I'm not listening to them just so I can say my part next. No. I want to listen to them and factually listen to what they're saying. Not just hear it, but listen to it. Understand what they're saying. Understand where they're coming from. See it from their perspective. That active listening coupled with allowing them to speak first will do wonders in helping those arguments or disagreements.
Simran emphasizes a couple different things in her therapy approach. Number one being CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and talking about modifying your thoughts, your behaviors, and your actions. And that kind of goes back into, we talked about NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and kind of being able to change the way that you view certain situations, the way that you view your feelings about the situations. And it also ties back into, as you mentioned before, mindfulness, focusing on the present, the here and now, and really exercising rational thinking to help enhance that mindfulness and not invalidating your thoughts and feelings, and really figuring out what is making you feel the way that you're feeling. And again, these are all different approaches that can be used to kind of really break down. All of them kind of have to deal with what is at the heart of the situation. What is really making you feel this way? Why are you feeling this way and acting this way and behaving according to this feeling? And using CBT, using mindfulness, NLP, all those things to figure out what the cause is, and then doing something about that to help change the kind of effects of that feeling and working that way. And it's good to hear that she emphasizes those things, because oftentimes it's easier to treat the symptom and not the cause. And if you don't treat that cause, the symptoms are going to keep showing up no matter how much work you keep doing. And so I think that's a appropriate response, appropriate approach to dealing with a lot of these situations.
Yeah, and of course, my naive mind coming at this thinks that really this cognitive based therapy, the linguistic programming, the mindfulness is all an opportunity to give you a different perspective on whatever it is that happened or is happening or might happen, depending on whatever the situation is. Because this cognitive based therapy, the NLP and mindfulness, in my naive mind, I don't know how to be a therapist or much about what goes into that, but my interpretation of that is these tools, these tactics give you an opportunity to think differently, maybe from a different perspective, or to change the words or the vocabulary that's being used in order to interpret those things, whether it's past, present, or future, is regardless in this case. But it is important to think about those in correct terms. The words that we use have much more impact than we think that they do. And our perspective is the only perspective that we can see. Our eyes are information gathering agents. They see the information, they take the information in, your mind interprets that information. But you can only interpret your vision, or you can only interpret information that you see, that you take in through your vision. I don't know what he sees. I think this color is gray. He might think it's charcoal. Okay. There's a difference there. Maybe this is a weird way to do this, but he sees, and if you can't see, I'm pointing to Mr. Kent. Mr. Kent sees things differently than I see things. He understands things differently than I understand things. He uses different vocabulary words than I use to understand things and to interpret those things. And I think that, again, from my naive perspective, this cognitive-based therapy, this NLP, and mindfulness all provide ways and a method to perceive things differently, to gain clarity on those, and to help to understand those instances better. And if that is something that you're struggling with, then going to an expert, going to a therapist is going to be the way that you're going to achieve that clarity, that change in perspective. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to do it yourself, because you have your own vision. You're taking in that own thing. You have your own perspective. To change your perspective has to almost always come from an outside source.
And speaking of mindfulness and perspective, something that we've talked about before is positive affirmations. Recalling your past successes to help reinforce your positive outlook on yourself in the present. Believing in yourself and boosting your self-confidence is huge for mental health, and huge, as we're talking about working through some of these kind of hindrances in everyday life. And we talked about avoiding I want and I should kind of phrases, and instead using an I am and I will kind of phrases. Whether you're setting a goal, whether you're trying to define your self-worth, speak up about it differently. Don't make it something that is far off that you haven't quite reached yet, but talk yourself into those feelings, talk yourself into those beliefs, talk yourself into that success by using your vocabulary, that transformative vocabulary. The different things you say are really going to have an impact on how you actually view yourself. And I think that's going to help us respond to situations differently, rather than being someone who should react with confidence. You're someone who will react with confidence, rather than, I want to be a high achiever. saying, I am a high achiever, and letting that kind of dictate your actions. And like I said, we've talked about this before, but it is a huge proponent and a huge component in mental health and positive self-image, positive self-confidence, and those kind of things related to this field.
Yeah, and of course, as we talked in the episode, in my way of thinking about affirmations is that is how you talk directly to your subconscious, and your subconscious is your basic programming for how you go about things. And if you speak to that subconscious correctly using I am type of statements, then you are structuring and changing the way that you see yourself. Basically, on a basic level, because you are talking directly to that subconscious, and that subconscious is your basic programming as you go through your day. That is how you know to be you moving forward.
We talked about the idea of having some me time during the day, having a part of the day where you can sit down and reconnect with who you are and the things that you love. Being authentic to yourself is vital for positive mental health, and avoid comparing yourself to other people. Think about how you can compare yourself to a past version of yourself and make yourself better, rather than I want to be better than this person, or this person has this and I don't have this, or this person is this way and I'm not that. Don't get caught up in all that. That's not good for your mental health, not good for your self-image. But again, think about things that you like, think about what you love, think about what makes you who you are, and be authentic with yourself. Really tap into the things that make you happy, bring you joy, and foster those positive feelings, because that's going to have a huge impact on the way you look at yourself, which is going to therefore impact your mental health and the position that you are in from day to day.
And of course, you've heard me say this, I'm sure, countless times before. Jordan Peterson said this. It's not about comparing yourself to who somebody else is today. You want to compare yourself to who you were yesterday and use that as your metric to improve. Not on who somebody else is now, but who you were yesterday, and always consistently improving that version of yourself.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Absolutely wonderful to sit down with Simran and hear her takes and ideas, and how we all can practice these different ways of helping ourselves every day. And again, at the end of the day, try to find some help, whether it be through a therapist or a perspective shift in your own life, or a group of people, or a person that you can confide in and draw some of these positive things from. But again, wonderful time to sit down with her and hearing everything she had to teach us.
Agreed. Yes. Yeah. If like you said, if you feel that you may need some help, seek out a therapist. So, and if you've had previous experiences in therapy and they didn't go the way that you wanted to, or hope that they would or should, then understand that that isn't the standard moving forward. Maybe that person just wasn't the right fit for you, to seek out somebody else, but to have that person.
Make sure you follow us on social media. You can find the podcast at Prestigious Pod.
You can find me, Chris Bean, at Chris Bean Official.
You can find me, Mr. Kent, at Mr. Chris R. Kent.
And if you like our content and would like to subscribe to our email, you can do that via our social media or on the website.
Make sure you also join our Discord for exclusive content and personal interactions.
If you would like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life by me, Chris Bean, you can do that by reaching out on one of my social medias, or by emailing the podcast at prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com.
Those are the points. Make sure you come back next week for even more points and another great conversation. Until next time, I'm Chris Kent.
And I'm Chris Bean.